Tonight, the country's worst procrastinators. Powerless in Puerto Rico.
We could have done this work in probably one day back in the States.
And the Great Christmas Tree Shortage of 2017. In the 9-month battle to recapture Mosul from the Islamic State, between 9,000 and 11,000 civilians were killed, according to an Associated Press investigation. Neither the U.S.-led coalition nor the Iraqi government have confirmed that count, which is nearly 10 times higher than previously reported. The AP said it cross-referenced morgue lists with databases from non-governmental organizations. It reported that about a third of the casualties died as a result of strikes by the U.S.-led coalition or Iraqi forces. Another third were killed by ISIS. And the AP couldn't determine who was responsible for the remaining deaths. North Korea has begun testing to mount anthrax payloads onto intercontinental ballistic missiles, according to a Japanese newspaper. In the past, South Korea has said that Pyongyang has between 2,500 and 5,000 tons of chemical weapons. And just this week, the U.S. National Security Strategy document warned that, quote, North Korea is also pursuing chemical and biological weapons which could also be delivered by missile. Olympic gold medal winner Michaela Maroney said in a lawsuit today that USA Gymnastics paid her to keep quiet about her allegations of sexual abuse by the team's doctor, Larry Nassar. The suit is seeking, in part, to invalidate a confidentiality clause that Maroney said carried more than $100,000 in penalties if she spoke about her abuse. In a statement to Vice News, USA Gymnastics confirmed it reached a settlement with Maroney, but said the non-disclosure clause was mutual, and the agreement followed state law. Nassar pleaded guilty to first-degree criminal sexual conduct in November. Separately, he was sentenced to 60 years in prison on child pornography charges earlier this month. A federal judge declared a mistrial in the government's case against Nevada rancher Cliven Bundy, 2 of his sons, and another co-defendant. The men were accused of leading an armed standoff with federal land agents in 2014, but Judge Gloria Navarro said U.S. prosecutors purposely withheld critical evidence from the defense, evidence that could have been favorable to the accused. Bundy's lawyers argued that the case should be dismissed, but the judge did not drop the charges against the 4 men and tentatively scheduled a new trial to begin in February. Turkish prosecutors are seeking more than 4 years of jail time for New York Knicks center Enes Kanter for insulting President Recep Tayyip Erdogan on Twitter. Kanter is Turkish, but he lives in the U.S. now and would be tried in Turkey in absentia. He's been an outspoken critic of Erdogan, and earlier this year his Turkish passport was revoked and a warrant was issued for his arrest. In a statement to Vice News today, Kanter said, quote, Erdogan is becoming more and more authoritarian each day. He can't even stand fair criticism. I believe Turkey deserves better.
Cuando yo me criaba, no había luz aquí. La energía eléctrica llegó aquí cuando yo estaba como en 6º grado. Pues, y si sobrevivíamos así, pues ¿por qué no vamos a sobrevivir ahora? Esta puede ser agua de monte porque esto va a hervir.
Antonio Quintana lives in a small mountain town in the middle of Puerto Rico with his wife Carmen Rivera. She has glaucoma and late-stage Alzheimer's. Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico exactly 3 months ago, destroying 80% of the island's electric grid. It's been so long since Antonio's had electricity that he stopped waiting for it to come back.
Para entretenerme, a la Antolina con un gatito, bajo abajo creo con los gallos. Eso tiene 75. Que tú tienes que volver a adaptarte a situaciones.
¿Usted siente que van a estar así por mucho tiempo?
Por lo menos yo creo que un año.
No one knows exactly how many people in Puerto Rico are living like Antonio and Carmen, but at least a third of the island is likely still in the dark.
Este huracán, no había sistema eléctrico a nivel mundial que se sostuviera ante el embate de un huracán donde hubo vientos registrados de más de 200 millas.
But the blackout isn't just due to the storm. Human beings played a role here too. Back in the 1970s, PREPA, Puerto Rico's electric power company, built its most important plant in the south because that's where the oil industry was. The problem? Most people live in the north.
Tenemos 75% de la producción aquí en el sur y sin embargo tenemos 70% de la demanda, ¿verdad?, en el área metropolitana. Entonces dependemos de las líneas de transmisión.
It's no secret that running crucial transmission lines through the mountains in the middle of Puerto Rico wasn't a great idea. But like all human plans gone wrong, it didn't seem like anything would go horribly wrong until it actually finally did. But the design of the grid wasn't the only problem. The failure to take care of it hurt too.
Ha habido críticas que han sido justas.
¿Cuáles críticas han sido justas?
El sistema, pudimos haberle dado más mantenimiento, vamos a decirle así. Y digo pudimos, pues yo llevo 28 años en la empresa.
An external audit conducted last year concluded that PREPA went years without investing in basic maintenance, and the grid, quote, appears to be running on fumes. And that's only when PREPA can afford fumes. Since 2014, it's filed for bankruptcy, laid off about 25% of its staff, and routinely skipped basic upkeep. It's all made the grid more vulnerable to collapse, and it's made the task of getting the grid back online much harder.
So when we first showed up at this line segment site, the area was completely vegetated. One day we had maybe 20, 25 guys out here for a whole day trying to free a track vehicle and do work. So I mean, that's an expensive day.
Right, and not even working on the real task at hand.
The real job, correct. We could have done this work that has taken us over a week in probably one day back in the States with good access to the sites.
And then there's another problem. There aren't tens of thousands of new 60-foot utility poles just lying around.
I think the biggest challenge we face is the amount of material required.
The Army Corps of Engineers has ordered more than 50,000 utility poles, but only received about 11,000 so far, because Texas, Florida, and California all need them too. But even if there were 50,000 poles available, they'd still have to be shipped to Puerto Rico, and then distributed to the roughly 3,600 workers who are spread throughout the island.
We're not just talking about a normal telephone pole that you would think of. We're actually towers that you would see along the highway. So if you can imagine one of those large towers, actually lifting it by helicopter and transporting it on top of a mountaintop and then emplacing it and then flying crews in who actually are hanging under helicopters to string line and all the pieces of that. In some cases, some of the towers on these lines were all completely destroyed.
Initially, the goal was to restore power to 95% of the island by mid-December. Now, the Army Corps of Engineers is targeting late February. And even then, they're just restoring the system to how it was before, because you can only spend FEMA money on repairs, not upgrades. On top of it all, after power has been restored, there's no guarantee it'll be reliable.
Se nos va la luz casi todos los días, a veces por solo 2 minutos o 3, pero a veces se nos va por 5 horas o por 4 horas.
Tamara Texidor, who lives in San Juan, is part of a large contingent of people on the island who only sort of have electricity back. ¿Cómo le ha afectado no saber si vas a tener luz en cualquier momento?
Es como el no poder planificar. La nevera, el congelador está vacío y la nevera tiene muy pocas cosas como para el diario, para el desayuno y se compra bien de poquito a poquito porque pues no sabemos.
Tamara doesn't expect things to change anytime soon, but it's hard to complain. She and her family know they're the lucky ones.
Que el mundo se va a caer y tú no puedes aguantar, porque déjalo que se caiga. Si tu mal tiene remedio, ¿por qué te preocupa? Y si no lo tiene, no te preocupa tampoco, pues no vas a hacer nada. Pues eso lo que quiere decir es que tú tienes que adaptar, o sea, acoplarte al evento que venga lo mejor posible.
President Trump and congressional Republicans took a victory lap at the White House today, after final passage of their tax reform bill gave them their first big legislative win of the Trump era.
It's always a lot of fun when you win. If you work hard and lose, that's not acceptable.
Congress spent nearly all of its last 5 months fighting over the bill, and now has just a few days to figure out everything else.
Like most of us, Congress has a bad habit of leaving things till the last minute. Unlike most of us, Congress's to-do list is more consequential than finding a Christmas present for your cousin. The things Congress puts off are the things it has to do but can't agree on. And there are now a ton of deadlines they're about to run up against this week and next. Funding for the entire government runs out on Friday at midnight. Funding for the Children's Health Insurance Program expired back in September, and several states say they'll have to start kicking kids off the program without new funding. Some government surveillance powers expire at the end of this year, and lawmakers need to pass an $81 billion disaster aid bill at some point to help victims of the wildfires and hurricanes that hit the coasts over the past 6 months. Republican leadership is having so much trouble getting all of their rank-and-file members to fall in line that they've changed their plans on how to tackle these year-end deadlines literally 3 times since last night.
We'll go into conference, we'll have a plan.
When can we expect the bill release?
And Democrats are basically being just as cagey.
Look, we're trying to get as good a deal as possible. We're not going to negotiate against ourselves right here.
If this year's anything like the past 6, lawmakers will spend the next 72 hours exchanging escalating demands until the very last minute, when they'll pass another short-term spending bill and all leave Washington for Christmas. This kind of brinksmanship has become the new normal in Congress, but it's more than just annoying. It's a bad idea. Saving everything important for the last minute produces rushed legislation that actually makes the government work worse. Listen to Defense Secretary James Mattis.
Continuing resolutions coupled with sequestration blocked new programs, prevented service growth, stalled industry initiative, and placed troops at greater risk.
And uncertainty in the healthcare market has already affected a lot of people. Insurers hiked premiums to astronomical rates in some states to prepare for the possibility that Congress wouldn't help offset higher costs. So even if Congress eventually does come through at the last possible minute, people will already be paying more next year. Bad process, bad outcome.
Oregon is the nation's #1 supplier of big, beautiful Christmas trees. But not this year. From the Boy Scout tree lot,
this lot is usually completely full, but now, as you can see, it's completely empty.
We're like the Christmas tree capital of the world. How can people look around and not see Christmas trees?
I honestly don't know. They should be everywhere. It's Oregon.
to the garden centers.
This whole area is usually filled to the brim, but this year, as you can see, it's really dire. It's really empty out here.
Christmas is looking costly and kind of measly this year.
How short are you guys on trees right now?
We are about 500 trees short. This will be the first year that we will sell out before Christmas.
America is in the midst of a Christmas tree shortage expected to last well into the next decade. According to the Department of Agriculture, the number of Christmas tree farms planted by U.S. farmers fell by almost 2 million between 2010 and 2015. But because Christmas trees take a long time to grow, no one outside the industry noticed the ticking green time bomb until about a year ago.
We started hearing whispers if tree supply wasn't going to be there. So last year we really started reaching out to try to find a backup vendor. But, you know, just like everybody else, the supply really didn't meet the demand. It was a rough year. It's going to be a sad year.
It's not going to be sad for everybody. In fact, it's going to be a very Merry Christmas for tree farmer Jan Hupp, one he's been waiting nearly a decade for.
About how many trees were on that truck?
I would estimate on a truck like that, there's probably around 600 maybe.
So what you guys loaded here was what?
We loaded noble fir. Sometimes we'll do some Nordman fir, but today we only did noble fir. I mean, you have your Chevys and your Cadillacs. Your noble fir is the Cadillac. I really wish that I had more fields like this. Oh my gosh, it's got a nice shape. It's nice and full. I hate to brag, but damn, I'm happy with this field in here.
The Hupp family's been in the tree business since the 60s. Today, their farm stretches across 300 acres. Hupp planted these trees at the height of the recession, when a market glut sent prices plummeting and farmers out of business. At the time, he was getting as little as $18 for a tree that cost him $20 to grow. Today, he's getting around $43 a tree. He's suddenly the Pablo Escobar of pine.
Planted this field about 9 years ago. We're coming out to get our Christmas tree. This field was full of trees and now everything's gone, and the only one left is the one that I saved from my own house. So we're gonna go out and get a Christmas tree.
Since the 1960s, cabarets, strip clubs, and other X-rated businesses have been a part of Parisian culture. By the 80s, the city was home to more than 50 pornographic theaters, many of them clustered around the city's center. But today, there's just one left, Le Beverly, and now it's closing too.
Beverly étant une salle classée X, où on passe que des films pornographiques. Donc vous avez une pléiade de titres comme Les lolos de la pompiste, L'avocate n'a pas de culotte, Volupté anale. Voilà, il y a tous des titres, des titres amusants quand même. Alors mon histoire du Beverly, c'est d'arriver ici il y a 34 ans. Alors pourquoi je suis resté ici ? Tout simplement parce que il y avait une ambiance dans ce cinéma que j'ai découvert et qui était vraiment extraordinaire. Et voilà, j'ai appris à connaître la clientèle, à connaître les films, à connaître, à tout connaître du cinéma. Là, on a un projecteur américain des années 50. Là, vous en verrez plus, puisque maintenant, tout est numérique. Et donc, pendant 1 seconde, il y a 24 images, ce qui fait qu'on voit on surveille à l'oreille le film. Voilà, plus besoin de voir l'écran. À l'oreille, on sait que si ça passe. Alors, les films que nous projetons ici, ce sont des films des années 80, 90. Des films où il y avait un scénario, où il y avait de belles musiques, des beaux éclairages, des belles couleurs, où les femmes étaient nature, c'est-à-dire des seins sans être touchés, un sexe avec des poils. Avant, on mettait ça dans la rue. Aujourd'hui, on ne pourrait plus. Et au fur et à mesure, les cinémas ont disparu. Avant tout, c'était une raison fiscale et de loyer, parce qu'à Paris, ça devient des loyers très très chers. Voilà, ça, c'était naturel. C'est l'ordinateur qui quitte plus le VRP. Pour nous, c'est pas tellement la vidéo qui nous a exclu cette clientèle-là. Parce que de voir un film porno chez soi et de le voir dans une salle noire avec rempli de mystères, parce qu'on ne sait jamais qui est à côté de nous. Est-ce que c'est un homme? Est-ce que c'est une belle femme? Voilà, c'est le mystère hein, dans le noir. Étant le dernier, et bientôt, il y aura écrit sur l'écran The Head et ça sera fini.
Hello, my name is Joe Wright and I am the director of Darkest Hour. I really loved the script, but I was worried about whether I would actually go and see a movie about Churchill and therefore whether anyone else would. Then when I thought about Gary playing the role, it occurred to me that I would definitely go and see Gary Oldman play Churchill.
Here's to not buggering it up.
Winston Churchill was small. I find it really interesting that Hitler, Stalin and Churchill were all very small. He had a kind of dynamism, I think. He's often portrayed in other movies and TV things as being kind of slow and lugubrious and kind of obese. I don't think he was. He had fast little legs. He had a brain that worked at 500 miles an hour and people found it very difficult to keep up with him. He led with his chin. He strode through the streets, through the war rooms, through Parliament with this kind of dynamic energy. Kazuhiro, the prosthetics makeup designer, was someone that Gary knew of and was keen on. I looked at his work and was very impressed, especially by his work in Looper, where he made Joseph Gordon-Levitt look like Bruce Willis. And I thought it was very subtle and kind of extraordinary. So I didn't really see Gary for about 3 months while we were shooting. I was just dealing with this actor who looked remarkably like Winston Churchill.
Let them see your true qualities, your courage.
My poor judgment.
Your lack of vanity.
Yeah, my iron will.
Your sense of humour.
Ho, ho, ho.
I think Gary really enjoyed being in the makeup and costume. He would dance and he would joke, and I think he enjoyed being quite fat. And sometimes I'd put on music, like I'd put on Major Laser's Bubble Butt, and Gary as Churchill would start twerking.
Bubble butt, bubble, bubble, bubble butt.
I have it on video, but I'm not going to share that with you.
You cannot reason with a tiger when your head is in its mouth!
I started making this movie before Brexit happened, before Trump happened, before we saw this rise in confidence of the far right. And so there was no topicality really to the movie when I embarked on making it. And then as we went into production, suddenly these terrifying events started happening and the film took on a topicality. Be careful what you wish for, really. Do you know what I mean? I would rather that those things hadn't have happened and that the film had no topicality. And yet there was a kind of ghoulish fascination with what was going on. I'm embarrassed to admit that, though.
That's Vice News Tonight for Wednesday, December 20th.